Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to some and to others. We want to welcome you here to SKTV. Um, as you can see the smile on my face, I'm very excited to start this new um, series here on SKTV. So I'd like to welcome all of you. Um, as you can see the topic, we are talking about mental health and wellness. But today we are going to be focusing on the very first aspect of this, which is trust versus mistrust. Um, there will be a lot to talk about. You will have the opportunity at some point in time to call in, to contribute, to ask questions, to contribute. We don't intend to act like we know everything, do like we know everything, but we intend to provide at least the basis for the conversation, the basic, and also start to have this conversation that we might not want to have, some of us, and some might want to have this as well. But all in all, we want to welcome all of you. Um, we want you to share the show. We want you to please share the show. Um, a lot of disclaimer to be made. I'm very excited. I'm very excited, to be very honest with you. I'm chill about this process, about this new joining. Free education, free information. Let's invite others. Let's see where it all starts. Many of us have different reasons and different people to blame for some of the challenges we face, especially in terms of mental health and wellness. But I think this affords us an opportunity to have a conversation to see where it all starts. We'd like to start off by having maybe a couple of disclaimers here that we think will benefit the public. I know I'm not sure, but I just keep smiling. A couple of disclaimers that will benefit the public just before we play maybe one or two songs and get straight into the conversation. The first disclaimer we want to have here is we just want you to know that this is not for counseling. This is for educational purposes. We also want to inform you that we will not tolerate insults or disrespect on the post. You can disagree with us respectfully. This is not politics. This is educational time. So disagree with us, provide your input, but please, no fighting, no cussing, nothing personal. We don't want to see any personal attacks, please. We don't want to see no personal fighting or whatever it is, please. We also want to let you know that if you choose to make anything available, any information from your end available, we cannot guarantee any confidentiality. As long as you bring it in the public, you'll be held liable for the information you provide, not us. So we want to make sure we have those different disclaimers out here. We'll do our best to afford you the opportunity maybe to participate, to ask one or two questions. We will go a little fast, a little slow at times to explain some part or to dive into some parts of this conversation. But I think this is an opportunity for us to learn together. A lot will be talked about. Some of this information will go really fast. You can always, as you're already aware, watch the show. Today, my co-host ran away from me. She and I settled everything up this morning. She said, "You on your own." Telvina Cole, I just want to put it out there. Telvina Cole ran away from me. She said she enjoying herself today. she ain't coming on no live. She ain't doing nothing. She will just be enjoying. But yes, let's share the show. Let's invite other people. For one of the first time, we will play 2 songs today. Quickly while we share the show. I had a big technical problem. That's why I came on a few minutes late. Very, very big technical problem, but at least it's taken care of. I'm here now. But let's share the show, please. Let's invite other people. This is a very serious conversation. And we've put a lot of sacrifices and a lot of work in it from the back. So let's share the show. Let's invite other people so that we can have this conversation. We can get started. Again, my co-host went away from me. I want to make sure that the announcement is there. Let it be on record. She said, on my own. If I try, she will deal with me to this. So I ate them, my people. But yes, we'll get into the conversation very, very soon. Let's share the show. I want to say thanks to SKTV management. Thanks to Mr. Kane, Sybil Kane. Thanks to my girl, Devina Cole, who can deal with me in the back. But who has helped, with all the technical things in the back or so forth. But again, let's share the show on some serious note. It's a very serious conversation. I just want to let you also know that some of the conversation here might be a little stimulating. It might create problems. It might take you back into some things, maybe your childhood or so forth. It's not meant for that. It's meant for educational purposes, but we have to have this conversation. Some of these things might be applicable to you. They might not be applicable to you, but at the end of the day, we have to put in the public for educational purposes and for information. So let's share the show. I will start on here first with no copyright to this song with my man Friday, the cell phone man, while we get started sharing the show. And so we'll play Friday and then we'll play one more music and then we're good. So that 2 songs we'll play today. Today we're playing 2 songs. Let's share the show, please. Let this reach as many people as possible. Share with your friends, share with your enemies, share with people that you hate, people that don't like you, people that you like. Share with them. It doesn't make a difference. But let's share this free information, this free educational section. Please, this free information educational session, let's share it, please. Thank you.
You
So as promised, I'd like to play one more song really quick before we get to the conversation here. Just really, really quick. We'll try to make it very short. Um, let's play this last song as we share the show, please. Thank you.
You don't even know my story. You don't even know your story, oh yeah. Oh yeah, you know on the beat, yeah, I be a loca. So mora, you post a new car on Facebook, but that's so la la. You working part-time, bluffing and acting jealous, say you photo. My advice for you, in my way, I gotta confess, confession. You gotta confess, you must stop the impression. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing.
It's never gonna be another man trash, just another man treasure. Another man fool was another man poison. Got your good, according to your measurement. Got your good, according to your measurement. The player ain't garish, and they play you booty. Just because of impression, impression, fake impression, impression, yeah. You don't even know my story, or you want to share my glory, oh yeah. Everywhere you my way, oh way, oh. Everywhere you my way, oh way, oh. Every touch you my way, oh way, oh.
Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Yeah. The hammer you driving, nothing to keke. This a ballin'. The thing that we talking, they must stay right here. Stop spoiling my knee. I'm living my life, oh. See, I'm living my life, oh. If you pay you, hey, oh, hey, oh. If you hold you, hey, oh, hey, oh. If you hate you, hey, oh, hey, oh. If you pay you, hey, oh. You know,
Well, if you must wear a or you must wear a or. Well, let's get to the conversation here. I want to thank all of you for being here today. Thank you for following up with us. Today marks the debut of a conversation that we must have, both for those of us who are back home in Liberia and those of us who are in the diaspora or in other countries, as some might term it. Today, the goal is to be realistic, practical, and so forth. I know there are many questions in your minds. I know there are many. And very soon I'll be adding on a slide here so that we can see some of the information that we'll be talking about. But we can also talk about it in a context that we can all relate to it and it can all be clear to all of us. And I just want to make this disclaimer that this is not to be judgmental, to look down on anyone, but this is to have a conversation. Some of us might have ran away from some of these conversations. Some of us embrace them, while some of us, have no clue about them. We were never told. We might have never known about some of the things that will be said here today. But it is good that we're here. And it's good that we can learn together today. So let's get started. So I know one of the major questions that might be running through your minds would be, so what is this mental health thing? What does that really mean? Because it's important to know the meaning of something so that when you hear about it, when you see it, when you experience it, when you feel it, you can say, okay, this is what's going on. Now, if you don't know, then it's as hard as looking for help for it. So what is mental health? Based on the research that we conducted, mental health simply means, according to the World Health Organization, so we try not to restrict it to America so that it can be all over, because World Health Organization is all around the world. According to the World Health Organization, it simply means a state of well-being in which individual realizes their own abilities, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively, fruitfully, and is able to contribute to his or her community, society, or country. So simply, that's what it means. So many of us might still have some concerns and say, well, these are all big things. So let's try to break it down small. Let me say it in the elaborate way, the most common way I would say it, so that I don't rush with this. Let's try to break this down. What mental health really means. Let's try to break it down. Your well-being as a human being is important as how you will function. It's important as how you will live. So the things that you do, the things that you say, the way you dress, the way you act, the decisions you make, the choices you make, they make part of your well-being. Because we are not in your head, we are not in your heart, we are not in your body, we are not in your soul and your spirits. But when we see someone that is well, we can tell by the things that they do. So I gave you a typical example. If at your age you were 35 and you wore your shoes left and right, say you took the right foot of shoes and put it on the left, and you took the right foot of shoe and put it on the left, something is not right. I'll give you another example. If you wore your shirt on the wrong side, I'm not saying you were drunk. I'm just saying if you wore your shirt on the wrong side. And I'll make another disclaimer quick before we go on. If anybody posts any link here, we'll try to, delete it. But please, you who are watching, don't click on it. Please, I'm begging you, don't click on it. Because when you click on it, they will hack your accounts, they will hack your phone. Don't click on it. They've been trying to hack SKTV for a while. So they're trying every way, shape, or form. Please don't click on any link unless that link comes from me, either Moses, Sekou Kane, SKTV, or Telvina Co. One of us will, we are authorized to post links here. The rest of it, anywhere it comes from, that's scam. Please don't fall for it. I'm begging you, so that your account is not hacked. I want to make sure I throw that in there before we keep going with this conversation, because it's important for us to have this conversation. Please don't get distracted by those who will post. But let's move forward a little more. Let's move forward. So if a grown man or a grown woman was to wear the shirt on the wrong side, it sends an image of them. Let's take it a little further of the well-being. Let's take it a little further. If you go, this other example will sound a little funny, but it's realistic, and most of us can relate to it. If you go to the store and you buy something, let's say you wear medium and you took your hard-earned money and went and bought small, you might not think something is wrong with you, but something is wrong with your judgment. Something is wrong with you. Let me put it that way. And this is not to hit at anybody or look down on anybody, but these are just facts. Let's say, for example, if you see the person who violated you and you start to praise that person, and you start to cover up and make excuses for that person, something is wrong with you. Please, don't say they wish you. Don't say swear behind you. It becomes a mental thing, a physical thing to some extent. So there are a lot of instances. So if you take substances, it has the ability to make your well-being not be okay, to shift some things about you. So that's what mental health is about. And a lot of range of things, a lot of things. But then the question that most people would ask is, okay, you say all those things, Steve. So how does this start now? Can people be born with mental health issues? Yes, people can be born with mental health issues. I wanted to make sure we clarify that. Some of them can be natural. People can be born with mental health issues. Some of them can be natural. Some of them are natural. People can be born like that. So there are different things, different situations that can lead to mental health issues. And I wanted to be sure I pinpoint that. However, most of the things we see, most of the things we experience, they're not necessarily people being born like that. They're caused by stress. They're caused by events. They're caused by things that happen to us, our experiences. They're caused by the culture. They're caused sometimes by even the religion we are in. They're caused sometimes by the tradition, and different factors can be the cause for us to have mental health issues. Different factors, such as using drugs. So that's why it is critically important that as a mother or as a woman, even as a man, but mostly as a woman, when you find out you're pregnant, please stop drinking. Stop taking in substances. Stop smoking. Stop doing too much. Stop trying to fall off the place. Stop trying to show off. It is not about you anymore. You have a child, and you have the ability to expose that child based on the decisions that you make. But we'll get into that at a later point. I just want to make sure I lay that out there, because you can predispose your child to mental health issues by the substances you take in, the alcohol you drink, the things that you engage in. So it is critically important. Also, I wanted to bring this up, and I'll pinpoint on it as we go forward through the slides also. On the very first page also, yes, children can get affected, whether that trauma, that stress, and other things through the mother. So that means as a man, when a woman is pregnant, you cannot be beating that woman. It has the ability to impact the child. It does. You cannot make the woman be grieving and be crying and be in pain. It has the ability to impact the child as well. So you see how mental health things can start. So they don't, when you see grown-ups misbehaving, they didn't just wake up one day to misbehave. There are, we call them precipitating factors. There are things behind closed doors that you don't know about. There are historical facts. There are things that made them to act the way they act. There are many challenges they might have faced in their life. But for today's conversation, we're going to focus on how it all starts. And the way it all starts, it starts by something we call trust versus mistrust. So let's move on to the next slide. So under trust versus mistrust, there is this one guy. His name was Erik Erikson. Keep that name in your mind, because the reason you have to keep that name in your mind is because people who made impact in life, in history, their names are recorded and the things that they did. So let's take, for example, we who are Christians. When you hear the name Jesus Christ, you think about the Bible, you think about, your mind just goes straight to Bible, religion, Christianity, and and so forth. When those who are Muslim hear the name Muhammad, we who are not Christian, we think about the Quran, we think about, the Muslim religion. Some people say the tribe Mandingo, not necessarily, because not all Mandingos are Muslim. I just wanted to make sure I point that out. But that's a side point. So Erik Erikson, later on we'll find out who he is, but Erik Erikson came out with something called the full the 8 stages of psychosocial growth and development. So today we are going to be talking about one of the first stage, which is trust versus mistrust. Now, you see that beautiful picture that looked like a ladder, how people look like the people were climbing ladder, and it seemed like they started off and they went. As we go into this conversation, this slide will always be around for us to reference it. And the reason we have to reference it because it all starts from somewhere. It all starts from somewhere. So also, you have the ability as a woman to choose who you have a child with. And same thing in some cases with some men. They have the ability to do that. So let's say if you end up with a family, in a family that had, and this is not a stigma, please. This is not a stigma. This is serious. This is not a stigma. Some families have mental health history. They have mental health history or psychological problems. And you have children in a family. It's more likely so that you could, when you are having children, have maybe 1 or 2 children that are facing mental health challenges. It's more likely so. But we'll get to that as time goes by. We'll talk about some of those things and those different things. But I just want to make sure I point it out in this conversation. So you see the different steps, the steps that on that picture, as you'll be seeing on your screen. You see that it all started from a little child. And that's how our entire life is. That's how our life is. So when you see your grandfather today walking with stick, he passed, or your grandmother, she passed through these stages of life. And most of the times, us growing in Africa, we didn't capture some of these things because either we're not educated to them or we're not informed about them. But it's a normal part of our lives. It's a normal stage. And we have to go through them. You can't. So let's say you skip one of these stages. As time goes by, you will see why it is important for you to pay attention to all these stages. Because when you skip one of them, you will see how you will react in the other one in order to cover up. Let me say again. When you skip one of these stages of life or development and growth, you tend to revert. So sometimes when you see people who are of older ages are supposed to be behaving a certain way, know that something is not right. Let me say it again. When you see people behaving a certain way, when they're supposed to be a certain age, let's take for example, a 60-year-old man or a 65-year-old man sagging, having earring, cutting your hair like he's someone on 16-year-old. Something is wrong with him because he is either not acting his age, dressing his age, or so forth. Normally, you act, you behave, and you live according to your age. So I'll give you a common example. When you are at the baby shower or you are at the club and your man can give you a chance or your partner can give you a chance, they just there following the plate. The man's behaving, want to talk to all your friends, want to talk to your age group or whatever it is. Something is wrong. They're making up. They're trying to make up for some things. They're trying to catch up. The same thing vice versa. When you are young and you decide to do certain things, to take on certain responsibility, you decide to do certain things and take on certain responsibility that are not of your age. It creates problem in your normal growth and development process. Listen, this is not something to argue. This is not something to say, I agree, I don't agree. It's not up for debate. These are facts because your behavior and your action will reflect these things. So I'll give you an example. Imagine a 20-year-old girl. Imagine a 20-year-old girl marrying a 61-year-old man or a 40-year-old man, whatever it is. Or 20-year-old children, the most thing they're focused on is to get married and they won't have babies or whatever it is. You are early on taking responsibilities that at your age, and as you go through this thing, you will see at a certain age, there are certain responsibilities you must have. Now, when you take on responsibility that shouldn't be to you, it brings up more stress. It predisposes you to more problems from a psychological or mental standpoint. It makes you unstable. So at the end result, people in the community, people in the society, people in the environment, people in the country start to see that in the way you behave. So it creates imbalance, instability. So let's move on, because you're looking at the picture that the first stage we start with is the stage of trust versus mistrust. And that stage is very important. So let's see who was this guy who did this thing. So the guy who did this thing, his name is Erik Erikson. You see that old man holding his jaw? He died. His name is Erik Erikson. So Erik Erikson was born in Germany, but he came to the US. So he's termed as a German American psychoanalyst. I'm not going to go into that part because for this conversation, it's not really, really important. What's important is what I want to point out to you. So Erik Erikson wrote different books, and he's well known in his psychological world. He's well known, very, very well known. And Erik Erikson wrote another book, or he talked about something else that at some point in time we'll go through as well. He talked about identity crisis, the concept of identity crisis. And just to give you a little hint, Erik Erikson started to talk about identity crisis and how people at some point in their life don't know who they really are. So at the end of the day, guess what? They want to try everything. They want to do everything. They want to get involved with everything. They want to feel accepted. So they do things that are unconventional. They do things that they wouldn't normally do, but because they want to fit in. So let's take, for example, you know that hookah not good for you, but because you go hang out with your girls then, so you start smoking hookah. You don't even know what's in it. You start smoking hookah and start acting out, and start misbehaving and start bouncing around. Because you want to fit in. You can't drink, but because you're hanging out with the people, or because peer pressure or so forth, guess what? You try to fit in. You came from a poor family. You came focused to go to school in Monrovia or whatever it is, because you and your friend went to hang out, and the older men are there, and the god part in there. So somebody sees you and say, "Oh, they want you to be the goddaughter too." You fit in. You want big Jew. You want. So you see, they start having identity crisis from where they've come. They assimilate. In other words, they adapt to different culture. Remember, I told you from the beginning stages of this conversation that culture has a way to impact the way we think, the way we live, and the way we behave. It also has a way to structure or dictate your mental health, culture, the culture you're in. So you see these different things. So Erik Erikson talked about some of them. Erik Erikson did a lot of good work. He's a cool guy. He's a very good guy. He was a professor. He learned a lot. He learned a lot of books. So let me say this to you. Let me say this. Please don't listen to people that will tell you, "Oh, book not good. Oh, both people did this, both people do that." That's not truth. That is not truth. They're either projecting their anger because maybe they didn't follow their education, so they have an issue with education, with educated people, or they're just mad, so they want to eradicate education, or they chose not to advance themselves or to go to school. So they say, "Oh, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that there are not people who are educated are crooks. But we need this kind of education. We need educated people amongst us to help us, to teach us, to inform us. We do. It's very, very, very important. It's very important. I would urge you, please, let's stay away from politics on this particular segment. Please keep all the politics for next time when when SKTV political side come. This is mental health and wellness. Please, I'm begging you, let's not get distracted with politics. I'm begging all of you, let's not get distracted with politics, please. And please, let's stay focused on here. This is non-political, so we want to keep it as that. I'm begging all of you. I did not make that as a disclaimer, but I think it's critically important that we do that. Yes, this SKTV networks gets involved with politics, but today is not politics. So Erik Erikson is a cool guy. Oma is sitting over there, contributed a lot, So we're moving into the first stage. So I know many of you, the picture there the writings look very small. I'm sorry for that. There is no way we could have enhanced the writings, because if we had gone any further, what happened was you probably wouldn't have that writing out there. So that's the best we could have done. So we are very, very sorry. But let's get to the first stage. Trust versus mistrust, where it all starts. It all starts with you see a woman, or a woman sees you, and you're like each other. When you're like each other, you'll get involved. You'll get involved sexually without any form of protection. And the woman finds out she is pregnant. Or sometimes in Africa, some women do not find out early on based on different factors. Keep this in mind. From the day you find out that you are pregnant as a woman, you have two choices. You can choose to take it out, or you can choose to keep it. Kudos to our parents who chose to keep our pregnancy, so today we are alive. Now, it does not mean that when your mother gets pregnant, that automatically you are free. Automatically, you have no mental health problems. One of the things that you must think about, first of all, in your life as an adult, is who you will have children by, or who you choose to have a child by, because that's a decision you can make. That is a choice you have to make, especially as a woman. Now, some women, from a very low majority, can be raped. And sometimes they will have no option. They didn't have the option to choose their child's father or their children's father. Truth. That is very, very truth. But I'm speaking from a broader perspective, on a broader spectrum. Most women, one of the mistakes that are made, they do not choose selectively, consciously, who they will have child by. They go by the cute, by the sexy, by the hot, by the looks, by the money, or so forth. And they choose to have child by that person. Some women have even gone to the extent wherein they've come to the place wherein they've seen it as having a child by someone will keep that person. They do not take the time to investigate. Maybe that person mental state, get to know them. Is that person a violent person? Is that person an irresponsible person? Is that person a gambler? Is that person they don't like education? They're not responsible. You get any rent, time to pay your rent or your mortgage, the person go and play dice or play other games with the money or go to the casino, whatever it is. So don't think that when you have a child, automatically that child will become an injured. No, that is not truth. So you see how it starts. The choices and the decisions that you make, they trickle down into the children that you have too. Now, again, not necessarily that if you had a genius man, your child will grow up to be a genius or whatever it is. Now, in all cases, I want to be very clear and try to be balanced on this conversation. In this conversation, however, it's okay to choose that path, knowing that there are 100% chances or bigger chances of your children or your child inheriting those things, those traits. Sometimes you'll see that they will tell you, say that person let trouble, they let making power in the community. You still go there, that person is very violent, you still go there and have child by that person. The child comes on and becomes violent, disrespectful. They say, oh, you jealous your pa, now you're useless pa. Guess what happened? Good news. You like useless men, or you like useless men. Sorry to say, but that's a fact. I'm very sorry, but that's a fact. Oh, your pa is a loser. You look jealous, your daddy is a loser. Well, the child did not choose his daddy. You chose the child's daddy, or the child's daddy chose you, and you agree to some extent. So guess what? You pick a loser. But let's move forward to important things. Now, I will say this again. I know some Liberians don't understand simple English. We're not going to distract from our conversation here. If you come here and write political things, especially you write foolishness, I will delete your comment. You persist, I will have to send you for safekeeping. I have zero tolerance for foolishness when I'm in serious conversation. This is not political day. We're not having politics here today. No, there'll be no political conversation here. No way. Please. So I'm begging you. Let's stick with this conversation so that we can educate our people and help our people. We have the time to contribute. So let's move fast forward. So trust versus mistrust. When you get pregnant, for those of you women who are on this side, you remember the doctor used to tell you, when you listen to music, do you know that at that time the child start to form? The first thing that forms is the hearing. So that's why you see the child moving when certain things are happening. Even when a woman is pregnant, most women might be able to testify to show the connection. The child even react to how you are feeling as a mother. So that means if you are in a relationship with a violent person that time while you were pregnant, and that person putting so much stress on you, some women, it can lead to C-section. So sometimes the music you listen to, some doctors will advise you to read books to the child. It might not make sense to you. It is okay. It is the right thing to do. So can you imagine an unborn child, you're reading books to them, you're talking to the child, you're walking, you're exercising. What you are doing is you are setting the stage. You are doing different things for that child. The same thing too, if you choose to go to the club and listen to boom, 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 or you go to all the party there and listen to boom, 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 that's fine. You are also introducing the child to something, or you choose to drink alcohol, take other substances and so forth. Guess what? You are also introducing the child to something. So I say this to all of the women. When you find out that you are pregnant, even if you chose or you were not responsible in your life, please start getting responsible, because you are setting the stage now for that child. Trust versus mistrust. So let's move a little further into this conversation, because it's important for us to understand these things. So in trust versus mistrust, it starts here from the time you conceive to about 2 years old. So a lot of things can happen from the time a child is conceived, or when a woman is pregnant, up to the time she gives birth. So what are some of the things that could happen most likely? What are some of the things that could happen to that child? That child, within that period of time, can start to develop trust. I'll say it again. Or the child can develop mistrust, depending on how the child is treated and how they are cared for. And most of the time, that trust versus mistrust set the stage for that child's life as they move on going forward. Most of the things that will happen to them at that stage or age of their life, guess what? It impact them going forward. We're trying to go slower to break this down, to run through it and navigate it together so that you can understand exactly what is happening. So in the sense of trust, most times the child starts to believe in a caregiver, or the mother or the father, whoever is taking care of them. So what does that mean? It starts, first of all, with your child starting to build trust in you as a parent or as both parents. So let's take, for example, for some of you who don't want to give breast to the child, you still want to be younger. Let me encourage you to please be giving breast to your children or your child yet. If you ain't do it for the first child, you ain't do it for Sonny Boy, I beg you, when you haven't married, please do it for Mary. We're begging you. It's critically important. It builds trust. It builds bond, connections, and so forth. And for some of the young girls then too, who, or the parent too, who the child living to the caregiver house, because you want to be in the France, or you want to be in the party, or you want to be bouncing all around. It's not a good thing. You must develop and build a relationship in your connection with your child from the get-go. Some of the problems we are facing today in our personal life, in which, by extension, society is affected by our behavior, is because we have disconnections with our parents from the get-go. So you look to society to build that trust, to create that connections in our relationships. Some of you, the TV, raising your children, your young baby, you get all the funny, cussing music in there. The baby hearing it too, yeah? You get all the foolish things. You showing them all the funny things. The babies can hear that. They know that. Some of you also, you're the parent there. Whole day you're fighting, you're doing wrestling, you're fighting in front of your children. The man cussing the papa, cussing the baby. Sometimes you're fighting or you're further on the baby. Trust versus mistrust. You are creating an environment for that baby to start having. So I know some of you will say, oh, not you. What the baby will know? Yes, the baby will know. The baby is aware. Now, keep this in mind, please. The baby might not be able to communicate that, might not be able to process that. But remember that during this time, emotions, feelings, the brain, the mind, and everything is growing, and they'll gravitate towards you. But the second part about this trust too also, that baby from whatever age to 2 years old, that baby also will grab that trust and that love that you've given them and that support and that connection. They will bring it to the word. Let me tell you something. Some of the people we're dealing with in our community and our society today, the problem didn't start from here. It started from the family, from home. Some of them were raised by different people. They were raised in different places, under different conditions and circumstances. Now, I'm not here to make excuse for anyone, because that's not my role. But we must point to these facts. Some of these people grew up in torn homes. No parental care. Nobody to really, you bounce the child from one place to another. From the other caregiver, you the man or the pa, you go, your cost the other caregiver, you refuse to pay the caregiver, the child getting used to that person, you refuse to pay that people, then you got to carry the child somewhere else. And instead of you sitting there taking care of your own child, the child say, you will leave it to the caregiver, call 911, carry the baby, I'll be there. Listen, these things are facts. Some of you at a very young age, you were molested. You were touched. This thing go a long way. You see the picture over there? The first sign where the person is showing their green hand, as young as that baby is, that baby has a problem with that person. They don't trust that person. That's why babies react when they see strangers. They have that normal tendency of not, just rushing to embrace strangers because of the issue of trust versus mistrust. So also in the issue of trust, you as a parent are supposed to know what your child needs. That's your responsibility. You're supposed to know when the child is crying, when the child needs a diaper change, when some of you need the don't care attitude, and you drink, you get high. Sometimes the children got to be in diaper all day, and you keep the children, it's just a bad environment. Some of you even have the audacity. Smoke hookah, drink liquor in front of your young children right there. They're inhaling the smoke. You got your young baby and you're smoking hookah and say you're having fun. It's very scary. It's very scary. You got your young baby or your child there and you're smoking hookah. Some of you even have the audacity to introduce your children to liquor at a very young age. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're doing. Oh, guess what? You don't want to get in trouble. Because when you go to the hospital or to the doctor's appointment, when they check the blood, they find alcohol in there, you're in problems. You'll be in problems. So these are the little things that started off some of the big things we're seeing today. These children feel abandoned. No care, no support. The man not even connected to the child. All the man doing is running around behind the other boyfriend and forgetting about the child, neglecting your own child with a babysitter for months. You take the tax return money or you take the other money and you can't even care for your child. You can't do that one. You can't do that one. All you want to do is to look fly, look hot, look sexy, and just be wasting your time. And your child is there. Your child is not getting the needed support. Trust versus mistrust. You don't expect that child to have that connections with you. So because of that, they'll start having distrust in the caregiver or the parents. They'll start having the fear of the word. They will. Some of them start developing early anxiety. Very, very early on at a young age. They're anxious. They're very scared. They're fearful. Their needs are not met. All of these different things. So you see the child there. That child is fearful. The other child feels welcoming. But let's move forward into the trust versus mistrust. So you see some of the benefits of building trust with your child. Some of the benefit of building trust with your child. You see that mother, she's breastfeeding her child, looking directly into the child's eye, caring for her child. She doesn't say, you don't come make my tete fall down. I beg you, I stay young. Well, she's not. She's devoting and dedicating her time to her child. So, what are some of the benefits? Because sometimes we think one of the benefits is it creates that affection. So your child does not need to be passing around looking for affection in other places. Sometimes some of these children go out to look for affection and attention in other places, and they go seeking it the wrong way. Not only that, it creates comfort. The children are comfortable. So then they will grow. Let me tell you something. When you create an environment for your child to not be okay, when you create that environment, what happens to the child is it even affects their growth, the way they grow, the way they process things. Because the thing that they're not supposed to be worried about, they use that part of the brain to be worried about it. They're very scared. They're anxious. They don't know what's going on. They don't know how to go about this. They don't know what to do. No sense of direction, no guidance, because the parents are not there to help them, to guide them. This time, no child should be thinking about what they'll be eating as a baby. The mother should be there, not suffering from hangover, or the father not suffering from hangover because the party all there, and the child got to sleep through 12 in the day without eating. They not cry. You can't even hear the child voice crying because you are tired. It's stressful. It also provides for the child, which is food and other things. But at a bigger stage, it creates that connection, or it brings that connection. It brings that connection between you and your child. It's not a spiritual thing. It's part of our responsibility as parents. Let me tell you something. Some people did not plan to be parent at an early age. But once you know that you're going to be a parent, whether you're a man or a woman, then you have to man up. Even if you are not with the mother, but you still got to do what you got to do. You got to do your part. You have to. If it is your time to babysit on the weekend, it is your time to babysit. When I had my first son, one of the older guys told me, I was doing a practicum with him, some kind of training with him. And he told me, he said, let me tell you something. He said, from the day a woman gets pregnant for you, and you used to buy 2 sneakers for yourself, brother, you got to call it down and buy one for yourself and buy one for that child. That's it. It can't be about you anymore. But some of you won't even make your parenting rights or your parenting responsibility like that's some kind of competition in your child on. The guy say, I'll be baby man, I'll be looking at Becky, yeah, I will pull myself together. Okay, it's okay. You can do both. You can take care of the children and put yourself together. Not only when you carry them outside, then you dress them. Or you go and buy one new suit, one new jumpsuit, and someone a new sneaker because you're going to someone a party, you want to show off to the people that are there. That in itself is a problem. Everything is temporary. I mean, come on now. So yes, so you see that part of the reason also, again, it creates connection. So let's look at some of the things that mistrust can do. Let's look at some of the things. Mistrust, it creates a serious disconnection. You see the face of the little girl over there. And some of us, in all honesty, we want to be good children. Some of us will want to be good children. Some of us will want to be good parents. Even at our young ages, we want to be. But guess what's happening? The foundation is not there. Some of you parents now, the disconnect between you and your children. Because all this time they've been raised by the babysitter. But then they reach this age, you want to start telling them what to do. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. You didn't build a foundation from the beginning. The foundation is not there. So there's this huge disconnect. Sometimes the child is not even reflecting you, and you sit and want to blame other people. Some of the consequences is it creates inconsistency, unreliability. They can't rely on you. They can't trust you. The children, they become unpredictable. The parents they fail to meet the child's basic need, and so it starts to affect that child growth and development. It starts to affect it. They start looking for attention in places that they shouldn't even be looking for attention. They start trusting other people and opening up to other people and having conversation with other people. Your own child can't even sit down and tell you what's going on with them. They can't have a conversation with you. It's not a spiritual matter. It's a physical responsibility and discipline that you must have as a parent. So that's how the trust versus mistrust thing starts. People neglect their responsibilities. And people automatically think that the child will just grow up and just fall in line. Don't get me wrong, there are some children that are very resistant. There are some children that are very maybe hard-headed, and it can be at certain stages in their life. It's a natural thing. They can be hard-headed, because they don't know better. They need you to guide them. They don't know much. They need you to guide and direct them. So let's take, for example, if your child is a little child, you want to make sure that you take all the spoons and the knife, especially when they're 1 year old, 2 year old, they start walking. You want to make sure you take all these things away from them or from around them, because they will take it and go put it in a plug, in an electric plug. They don't know. They don't know better. They're looking up to you. But here you are. If you're all hand over, you are tired. I'm not saying from work and other things, but you can't even pay attention to them. Where are we headed? You never give any love to your child. And it becomes a problem. But it all starts too. Remember, I was telling you something. When you are a certain age, you must take on a certain responsibility. You can't put too much on your plate. So some of the young mothers, some of them cry, they stress because of the level of stress. Too much responsibilities. It was all cool when you and that DJ man at the club and you thought you were the sexiest man or you were the hottest man, and everything is hot. You didn't know that he was irresponsible when you had a child. He walked away because you know why? He's a DJ. He went over the next hot girl, and the next hot girl too, who is of your age too, will be passing around in the club and think she's all that. And so you have this big responsibility now. Even if you plan to go to school or go to college or whatever it is, you cannot do it because you have a huge responsibility. Then now you got to start overworking yourself. You got to start working yourself. And some of you wonder, and some of us wonder, why the white man makes it the young children who are in this country, who are maybe white or other colors or from other countries or whatever it is, the Indians and other people make it, and the children are successful because they plan these things. They don't just go around doing any loose things and trying anything loose. They plan. They structure and organize their life. Now, I'm not saying religion don't play a part in it. But they plan, structure, and organize their lives. That, hey, I'm going to go to college. Before I have a child, I'll be this age. I must have a degree. I must have this. I must have a suitable job. You don't need to have a degree. I must have a dependable job. And sometimes they even pick the person they want to have a child with or by. But our will do everything on log a ticket and leave it on the church and we leave it on God. But then we expect everything to be rosy. We expect things to move forward because we didn't plan, we didn't strategize, we didn't organize ourselves, and we think life will just come to us. No, you see the little girl? Her mom talking to her. Now her mom is angry. The next thing her mom will beat her. Her mom will start projecting all that anger into her. And guess what? That's what she will know. That's what she will know. So guess what? As time goes by, she gets resistant to that beating. So you not beat her. And next thing now when she cause trouble, she knows what's up. The only thing she will say, I know what my mom will do. Or he will say, I know what my mom will do. They will just beat me. What will happen? Nothing. They're just going to beat me, and after they finish beating me, and that's it. So This is how the issue of trust versus mistrust in the first stage of growth and development happens. A lot of factors, a lot of things to think about. Now, if you're watching me or if you're listening to me, you're saying to yourself, yes, I can relate. I've made these mistakes. How can I go back and change it? Or maybe my children are older. Maybe my children are bigger. Maybe as a parent, it's okay now for you to reach out. Maybe if you still have young children and you are neglecting them, it's time for you to rethink. Maybe you don't have a relationship with your parents. It's time for you to mend that relationship. Maybe it's time for you to do it. Maybe it's time for you to do it. Maybe it's time for you to go back to your mom's house, turn that apartment over, and go get your mom or your dad to help you take care of your child. Then you're struggling with all that stress and trying to kill yourself. Maybe you can do that. Put down that pride. That your mom born you, that your papa born you. You didn't born them. Maybe it's time for you to put down that pride and seek help and reach out and start acting like you have it. All of us need help to some extent at some point in our lives. Maybe it's just that time. In the next few minutes, we're going to be opening the lines for contribution. Or participation into this conversation. We'll be putting the numbers up here. You will have 2 minutes each to contribute or so. Let me get the number straightened up before we put the number on the screen there. Maybe there are some things that are left out here as well. You can fill in the blank. Maybe this is not applicable to you. Today, if you are just following us, where you're following us through SKTV, we are talking about mental health and wellness, and our very first topic is trust versus mistrust. Trust versus mistrust. As time goes by, we get to see how some of these things trigger even down into our relationships, into the decisions that we make. Into the decisions that we make, into the things that we say. Remember, I was telling you, the choices that we make, it tells people who we are. It prints an image of us. Give me a second here. We'll take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with the numbers.
You don't even know my story. You don't even know your story, oh yeah. Oh yeah, you know, on the beat, I be a loca. So mora. You post a new car on Facebook, but that's so la la. You working better. Loving and arguing, jealous, say you photo. My advice for you, in my way, I got to confess. Confession. You gotta confess. You must have the impression. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing.
It's never gonna be another man trash, just another man treasure. Another man fool was another man poison. Got your good, according to your measurement. Got your good, according to your measurement. The player ain't chemist, and the play body.
Well, thank you for sticking with us. At this stage, we'd like to ask if you have any question, any concern. So we're going to go right ahead and post the numbers on here. That is the numbers to reach us on. You can place your calls. You have each about 2 minutes to make your point, and we look forward to your calls for the next few minutes Whether you have a question or concern, please, let's stick with the topic that is on hand. Let's stick with that conversation, the topic that is on hand. Please dial that number, put in that PIN code, and you will be right in here to have a conversation or to ask your question. So yes, the songwriter says, cut your coat according to your measurement. I mean, that's a common saying in Liberia, right? So yes, any question, any concern about the very first stage of growth and development? We are here for the next few more minutes, and we will be calling it a day. If we don't receive any call or any input, we will be calling it a day. So we look forward to your calls. That is the number on the screen. You can call that number, put in that PIN code, and you will be joined onto the conversation here, and your voice will be heard, regardless if you have a question or an input or so forth. So while we're waiting for your calls, we'll get back to some basic things for you to understand. Trust versus mistrust. You can start it as you wish. It's up to you. There are a lot of things we can do. Now, it doesn't mean 100% our children would be, 100%, but at least let's do our parts. Yes, there's a recommendation that we should read questions and so forth. I agree. So we'll read one or two comments or one or two questions here. If you are lucky or blessed, put your comment or your question on there, and we'll go from there. So yes, let's get started. We'll start from the top. The other one, where you're talking different thing, we're not putting it on yet. If you have a question and you can't call for some reason, D-Credits states, oh, now I know why I'm stupid. Well, I don't know about that, D-Credits. D-Credits said, now I know why I'm stupid. Speak Your Mind say, I noticed. Cindy Martin Quay says, that's Liberia's biggest problem. Ruth Robert Kwengba says, thank you for such a teaching. We need, or let me say, I need it, Steve. Thank you. My partner, Masa Tropo, says, good topic. Partner, I will call you, partner. I'm in trouble with you, but I'll call you. Okay, so there's a question here. How do we distinguish decreased cognitive ability in elderly from mental health, from mental illness, from mental wellness? That's a good question. How do we distinguish? So in other words, I don't want to jump ahead of myself because I said I wouldn't, but this question is very tempting. It's very tempting. That my own chair lady. The question is very tempting. So let me attempt to provide some clarity and context about this question, or some answers, but we'll dive into this particular question. Hopefully, at the end, when we get to the stage of the elderly, we can talk about some of this. So the first thing, cognitive ability, is not as different as mental wellness. Let me say it that way. They work together. It's just that they have different means. It's like, let's take, for example, one person say t-shirt. No, one person say her, and another person say she. It's still me female. Let me put it that way. So, decrease in cognitive abilities is also a sign that that person is not having some mental stability to some extent, which means Once you start decreasing in mental abilities, it means your mind is not where it used to be. It's not where it used to be. So it's not functioning as it used to function. So in other words, it puts you in a mental instability. But that part of that part of your mental health and wellness is just focused on your cognition. I hope that helps. But again, we'll get deep into it. I really don't want to spend time on this now. I'll be getting ahead of myself, but that's a good question. And when we come to that question, then we'll be able to give scenarios and examples as we did today, so that it can clarify that question and make answers. So your cognitive ability will be, for example, you forgot. Maybe you can't recognize some things, or you can't recognize some people, or you don't have it together. So you come outside, the time is 5 o'clock, but you can't record it or whatever it is. You start having memory loss or whatever. And then you come outside, you tell people, the time at 10 o'clock in the morning. No, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So in that line, in that context. But again, we'll get to it. So let's read one or two more questions. But thanks for the question, though. It's a very good question. Somebody wrote here and said, create separation. Let me see here what this person wrote. This is long. Wow, we will get read now. I would will. Create separation of different reasons of causation of mental health. As you stated, trust versus mistrust exclusively in religion, a lack of understanding of text and applying false meaning of religion with truth meaning of the text being misinterpreted, and lost with neglect. And lost with neglect. Let me go there. Lost with neglect for the stated sign of moral guidance. The true facts are in the visible signs, and the mistrust are in the loss of signs and facts. Because of these neglected flaws, the action of the mental misapprehension can create. Thank you so much. That's a good point. You made a very good point. Well, I believe Telvi decided she will come on to ask me one or two questions, but the line is still open if you decide to. Let's bring Telvi on and ask a question. So we can hear you. What's up? Let me bring Tel on here. Let me take this person off. Tel, we're hearing the feedback from you.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's up?
So since everybody want to ask questions, I figure I ask my questions. Good evening, and thank you so much for this topic or for the show. Lots of takeaways. I think there's something for everyone in there. For us as parents, for children, for our neighbors, for our friends. You could just pick it apart, and I felt guilty for some of them, and some of them reminded me of past trauma. But I want to say thank you, my friend, for sharing. Question though, you talk about, the children. Something you mentioned about the children they don't usually run from strangers and stuff like that. Many years ago, I went to visit a friend, and it just reminded me of that. She had been living with this boyfriend, and she had her children there. And for me, my eyes always on the ground and all around. But I noticed that every time, at least the daughters, I noticed with the son too, but more the daughters. And the boyfriend was coming towards the daughters. They would always like run in different directions, and I followed the pattern for a while. Before for maybe a day or two, and I was surprised. So, talking about trust versus mistrust, when you mentioned that, it brought that to mind. And what we think would be a reason for the children to be doing that. I mean, for me, for the one semester of mental health class that I took on psychology, I felt like, and again, for us parents, our headlights go off because we say, oh, we're so surrounded by this whole abuse thing like rape business. So the two things came to mind. You got to be molesting those children because you're familiar, you're living in this house with them, so, and you're a professional. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say, we're getting to the molestation part of it as to where they can really build up on this whole trying to exhibit a behavior of rejection from that person and signs that it will show if they were molested, whether at a young age or at that age. We're getting into probably the next two stages here. But to your point, to answer that question, it could probably be there is a disconnect in a relationship with that person. Either that child might have noticed something, either by nature that child is not just open, they're reacting to maybe some of the treatments they've had from home. Remember, we talk about how mistrust can also, I will go back to it, can also contribute to people, to the word, not trusting the word. So that means if your parents or you got a mistrust, you got a feelings in you, what happens is you bring it in a word itself. In a general public, you start to be a little apprehensive. You're very skeptical about everybody. You start tripping. You're having all this anxiety. You're very, you don't behave normally. Everything triggers you. Everybody is like, you're suspicious of everybody. So that too could be a sign or red flag, especially from a very early stage, to show to me if that child were to come. Let's say the child came to the clinic, the child and mom came to the clinic, and we're doing an assessment on the child maybe for their, let's say, or the hospital for their regular checkup, the doctor's appointment, and the child stop acting that way, that is a sign for further investigation, because it's not a normal thing. Yes, some children will cry or whatever it is, but even when the parent is around, then that child should be able to, open up a little bit, being with the parent. But if the child is absolutely not opening up, even when the parent is there, it's a red flag to some extent. So yes, there could be different things that are happening behind closed doors, or maybe the child could be in pain or they're uncomfortable. So we got to keep all of that in the context. We can't just zoom in on one. But I would say in the sense of trust versus mistrust, it's not uncommon for children to run away from strangers. But if that
stranger, he wasn't a stranger in a way because he was living in a house with them for at least a year.
And that's what I was going to say next. If that stranger is not a stranger, such as that person has been living in the house, something is not right. Mm-hmm. Let me put it that way. Something is not right. It's not a normal thing. Something is not right.
Awesome. But just wanted to add a personal story. Sometimes and it is no way to kind of talk against or ex-husband or ex-relationship or whatever it is. But you mentioned something about how the children pay attention, and even when they're very young or in the mother's womb. But on a personal story, again, this reminded me. I remember by then we were staying in Liberia, and my ex-husband at that time was beating me in the night. And my daughter, one of my daughters, because I have two, one of my daughters, she was very young. She was in her crib sleeping. But I think I kept her in the crib for over a year or something, or maybe close to a year. But she stood up because of she must have, again, sense to your point of how children pick up on things and whatever it is. But she got up and she stood in her crib and she decided to, reach for me to take her. And
yes.
And I never forget that to this date. So yes, children, and she was less than a year, or probably a little over a year, but that happened. And so yes, the children do pay attention. And
so more likely so, because the brain has not fully developed at that point, that child might not be able to record that incidents, but they feel the feeling, the emotion
right
was there, and they build up on it. And if it continues, then it can become a problem. I think we have a caller here. Hold on one second. Hold on. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
Good evening, Steve. This is Beatrice. I'm calling from Pennsylvania. Beatrice Congress. I have a question. I did post my question, but I just want to elaborate on it. I have a question on this mistrust and trust section. When both parents are in the home of young kids and the kids are doing well and there's trust amongst everybody, the both parents and the kids within the home, everything is going fine. And then there's divorce.
Mm-hmm.
When does mistrust come to play? And who will the child or children trust or mistrust?
Well, that's a good question. So it will have to depend on the age group to fully, to some extent, determine the impact.
Specific 4, 7, and 12.
Okay, so 4, 7, and 12 will be the next stages that we get in. However, just to throw light on your question, that's an important question because at 4, 7, and 12, the children get to understand something, so it becomes a liability on the children as well. Because let's say, for example, if the children grew up 1 to 2 years old, let's say from 18 months to 2, from 0 to 2, that child has in their mind about together to build that trust and a relationship. Now, once the parents at between the age of 4 and 12 get divorced, that poses a stress on the children, not only to adapt to the new condition, not only to adapt to the new circumstances, not only to adapt to the different living conditions and environment of both parents, considering in most cases they might not be living together anymore. So it poses a stress on the children. It could also impact their ability as well. So at that point, they will not be in trust versus mistrust stage anymore. Because after 2 years old, they cross the stages of trust versus mistrust. However, it will impact the next stage that we talk about. And that next stage could also impact them for life. It could be something that they could carry for the rest of their life. I hope that helps answer your question.
It helps. It will impact, and I think that the best thing to do is I know what we do. Maybe the mother will always take on the children, and the mother will always want to maybe not, if the parent is the foster, don't want to be a part of it, part of the children, or the parent activated, the mother will want to take those children away from the father. But I think understanding this, the right thing to do is to always make sure that the father is still available and in the lives of the children, pick up the children.
I agree with you. That should be the right thing to do. However, there are different circumstances, especially based on how the divorce went or how things went. So there can be different things happening at once. So what can happen also, the reason I said it will impact the child because sometimes some parents will be so angry. Sometimes somebody not from the head of me and say, okay, see how comes in that truth. So our next topic, which will be shame versus doubt, we'll see it in there. We'll see how it plays in there. We'll see how it plays in very clearly. Yes, I agree with that. But then sometimes one of the parents might decide to restrict the child, from asking the parent, or from a lot of perspective. Guess what? One of the parents might be irresponsible as much as possible to not want to be involved with the child's life in the child's life. That poses a strain as well and stress on the child. So yes, thank you so much. This is a very, very good conversation. Thank you, Tia Lily. Guess what? I'll be on the East Coast very soon. Oh, Lord. You are very welcome. Thank you. Thanks for your contribution. Yes, Mr. Brett Denoir. The numbers are out here for you to please make your. Oh, you know what? I hung up on both of us.
Okay, I'm going to fall off.
Back in there.
I'm going to fall off because I already exhausted my questions. So yeah.
Only one question you had?
Yeah, there was more question or comment.
Only one question?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah.
You sure?
No, that's
okay,
it. Yeah, I just got off work, so my brain's a little bit tired, but I think that's all.
Yeah, we got about 5 more minutes, so let me go back on here and see if I can take this.
Okay then.
Put this in. Thank you, Tel. Thank you so much. Somebody say my audio. So the numbers to make your contribution are pinned there. So call that number and you will have the opportunity to participate. We got about 5 more minutes and we'll call it a day. Oh, they couldn't hear the caller. I'm very sorry. Oh, I didn't put the phone on speaker. I'm very, very sorry. I am very sorry. Sorry about that, guys. It's my fault. So yes. So yes, let's take your calls. All right. So we got what? 3 more minutes. We'll make 1 or 2 announcements and we'll call it a day. Unless you have a direct number and you want to make 1 or 2 contribution quick before we close, I will be taking out the number here. I've taken out the number. Well, we'd like to close this up tonight. Somebody says internet issue. Thank God it's at the very end. I'm very sorry. I've been having some technical problems all afternoon with the internet. I'm not sure what's going on, but we are grateful to be at the very end of this. Thank you so much for following. Tomorrow, let me make the announcement. Tomorrow, we'll be here. We'll be on the discussion again, as always. We have some political discussions tomorrow. The regular time that we're on, we'll be on here. We look forward to seeing you and having you on here tomorrow. A lot to talk about, a lot to talk about. Just a lot. Just very, very much a lot to talk about. We'll be on here tomorrow. Tel will be here. I'll be here. Siku will be here. But let's talk about next Friday. Let's talk about next Friday. So next Friday, we'll talk a little bit about shame and doubt, which is the next stage. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about shame and doubt is the next stage and how children grow and how they develop and so forth. We'll be on tomorrow, next Friday, the same time, the same place. But you can follow us tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be on 12 Central Standard Time and 11 a.m. Arizona time. We'll be on. We'll be talking about a lot of politics, about what's happening in our country. Tomorrow we'll talk a lot. Just so you know, we'll talk about a lot of things. We'll talk about the opposition. We'll talk about the political parties in Liberia. But we'll be on. But next Friday we'll be back on with mental health and wellness. Feel free, go on SKTV page, give us your feedback. You can go on my page and give us your feedback as well. What do you think? If we should continue this and how long it should be for? At least today we're able to go an hour 30 minutes. We the next 30 minutes, more or less. But thanks to those who called. Those who couldn't call, we're very sorry. We didn't make the numbers available to you. But all in all, I want to say thank you. Thanks for your support. Thanks for being here. Let's share the word. Let's share the message. Share this video with someone. They can watch it. Let us know if you have any question or any concern. Whatever we use today, the resources we use, let us know if you need it. We can share with you. We also have the references there that you can go through to check them out. So thank you for sticking with us. Thank you so much. Me, I like to promote Labra, so let me go back to my Friday arrival. Have a good night, good weekend. Stay out of trouble. Stay blessed, and see you tomorrow.